So quarterly, our themes have to do with AGNT, which is the Association for Global New Thought. And those two are, one, the season for interfaith and intercultural celebration, and also the season for humane service. So they offer up a menu of things that AGNT is inspiring all of us to do, including Science of Mind centers, Unity churches, and others around the world at this time. So we're having a wonderful time exploring interfaith concepts. We're also focusing on service this month at CSL Palm Beaches. And we're also focusing on this idea of peace today because it's International Day of Peace. So there are so many things coming together perfectly because they're all elements of who we are and how we're constructed. They're all elements of the core of life itself. So today's message is peace begins with me. And I just want to ask everyone, the moment that I said that, or the moment that you read that title on the screen, you don't have to tell me, but can you connect with what your first response was? Peace begins with me. Okay, we're sitting in a beautiful, peaceful environment for the most part. It's quiet. We have no known reason to be concerned. And so perhaps that concept brings up the best in us about it. What if you were having a different kind of day? And something else deeper down there that maybe you didn't even know you still believed or ever believed about peace came to the surface when that question was asked. The question is, when I say peace begins with me, what comes up first? It might be something like this. Yes, I get that. And every day I do my very best to make sure that I act accordingly. What if something else came up? Because I just talked about a different kind of scenario, maybe not so sacred and safe and perfectly orchestrated as this one right here, right now. Maybe traffic. Maybe a really tough Monday. Maybe a challenging time at work. Maybe you're watching the news or reading the paper or talking to another person about what's going on in this world right now. Peace begins with me. What if there's something, I'm just going to be the voice for this something, okay, this morning? What if there's something in you that says, yes, but. Yes, but. We can't have peace just yet. Because people are messed up. And the world is messed up. And not until they see the light and mend their ways are we ever going to have peace. And I just don't know how to accomplish that. So you see, my body language is just all discouraged. There are times when we feel that way. And what do? We might burst into tears with that compassionate connection that got past all of our protective barriers. We might try to numb it by going to do something that we find entertaining or amusing, comfortably distracting. We might sit down and say, gosh, what can I do? I want to pay attention to this idea that we have this desire for peace. Maybe we say we want it. Maybe we long for it. Maybe we pine after it. Maybe even we hope for it. But hope isn't powerful enough. And when we reach this point where we say that peace is a wonderful thing and I do my best, but we reach an impasse. We reach a place where something else that we actually have a deeper conviction about, that we have become convinced about, that we actually believe in more than a peace, it rears its ugly head and it that says, yeah, can't get past this one. Don't know what to do about it. So Ernest Holmes is the founder of this teaching, and there are a couple of things about it that are really relevant today. When Holmes taught about freedom from bondage, he said that once we understand something fully and we totally embody it and it becomes really a part of us, it becomes a law in our lives. What does that mean? When we know something so well that it's just who we are, it's how we are, it becomes the rule, the norm. It becomes our everyday experience. Okay. So sometimes we come up in life, as they say, knowing something and believing in it so powerfully, we are convinced of it, it becomes our conviction. We have come to believe in it, and it becomes part of our belief system. And it is so familiar to us that we think it's true. And guess what happens? It becomes law in our lives. This teaching and many others will tell you that when something becomes law in your life because you know it so well that it's part of you, it dictates how your experience unfolds. So we have some of these impressions that we've brought up in life that are true and quite useful, and they serve us really well. For example, learning what's hot. Apparently, when I was too young to remember, I put my arm in an oven to reach for the beautiful pizza. And I laid it on the door of the oven. And I had excruciating burns that just tore everybody else up in my family. But I don't remember today. And it was long ago enough, I don't have any sign of it. I learned what was hot. That's a great thing. That's a keeper as far as beliefs go, right? We learn not to run out into the street. We have people who love us so much, they'll say, "Get down from there!" That means I love you, and I don't want you to be hurt. But we also learn some other things. Because what we do is we see and we hear and we assign meaning and we file things away in our memory, and then we let those things guide us. And what if they are things like, you'll never amount to much? You're not too smart, you know that? I'm not really going to look at anybody because I don't want to be responsible for any new impressions. You might have heard that you're learning disabled, or you're just not too bright. You might have heard that the odds are against you for some reason. You might have heard that people of your shape, size, color, height, weight, gender, or whatever don't have the same opportunities. You might have heard that people in our family just never go to school. And on and on and on. And all of that is simply the history of experiences turned into convictions and beliefs and memories that we have chosen or unknowingly allowed to guide us that are not the truth of who we are. So when we end up being guided by convictions and beliefs that are either the result of our own unknowingness, our own young experience when we didn't know better and they haven't been changed yet, or they're the result of what our mom and dad thought or what our grandmother and grandfather thought. So many of us learned a great deal because our grandparents or our parents went through the Depression. Well, we've been having our own more recent versions of those, and no doubt there have been impressions made on people, young people in this day and age, about the economy, the market. That's not even worth going to school anymore because all you end up is unemployed with lots of debt. So many things to believe. Convictions and beliefs come from experiences and what we choose, the meaning that we assign to them. They become our memories, and our memories are creative. And our memories we look to for guidance. The truth is that we can change those. What does that have to do with peace on earth? Well, let's go back into this idea that we're in a science of mind center, a religious science center. Those are the two names for this theology, if you want to call that. It's also called a philosophy or a way of life, whatever you choose. But what do we talk about on the International Day of Peace? When we read about or hear about or see or whatever, encounter news of what's been going on out there. And we're tempted to say, people are just so messed up. And we're tempted to say, the world has gone to hell in a handbasket. And we're tempted to say, there's just no way that this is going to change until those people see the light. There's no way this is going to change until those people mend their ways. And I just don't know what I can do about it. It feels awful, doesn't it? Okay, so we'll get out of that space. We're here because we have an idea about what we can do with that. If you can achieve freedom from bondage by understanding the laws of freedom, you can achieve freedom from bondage to conflict by understanding how conflict is created. You can achieve a life of peace by understanding how peace is created. It's all created the same way. So to the degree that we fully understand and deeply know and embody peace, it will be law in our lives. That means that it will trump, it will outdo, it will outweigh, outshine, and just negate anything else. So that's how we get to peace, by using the same principles. Okay, so what would we be setting in motion, and what would we be telling the law of cause and effect to go out and create for us when we're talking to our friends, looking at, let's just say, the Yahoo news page, CNN, Fox, any magazine in the grocery store, talking to one person who thinks it's their duty to make sure they're very thoroughly informed about everything that's going on out there. Any ain't it awful conversation of any kind. What do we do when those come up? What's our mindset when we get in there with them? Our mindset when we get in there with them is, ain't it awful? And when we are in an ain't it awful state of mind, and we're saying people are so messed up, the world is just, it's just through. And I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to go to make sure I'm comfortable, or whatever. What is that telling the law to set in motion? What is that telling the law to create? It's going to create a messed up world full of messed up people and messed up experiences. That's not very appetizing. So how do we move out of that? How do we move out of that? It takes discipline. This is a simple solution, and it takes practice. Why? Who in here does not have an email account? Okay, I don't see any hands. Who in here has nobody in their lives ever at all anymore? Whoever watches and talks about the news? Nobody, okay? So, you get the point. The truth is we're constantly exposed to the opportunity to focus on things. To think about them until a feeling arises, until a creative process is set in motion, until the law says, you are my beloved in whom I am well pleased, you want it, you got it, Toyota, whatever impress is made upon that law is what it begins to produce accordingly. Exactly. There's this phrase, the universe always says yes. Why is that? It could be a personal yes, and it's also an impersonal yes. It's an unwavering yes. The universe, unlike computers, is not built on binary code. It doesn't really have yes and no. It doesn't really have good and evil. It doesn't really have two powers. There's just one. And that one power is always saying yes to life. Yes to whatever is put into it. Yes, you are my beloved. Yes, yes. It's always in the affirmative. You know, sometimes you work with someone or a modality or something where you have to ask a yes or no question. Well, when you talk to the universe, you have to ask a yes question. Okay? Because it'll say yes to your doubts. It'll say yes to your fears. It'll say yes to that momentary indulgence and this idea that the world is just shot and we ought to just clean the planet off and start over and oh well. But there's time for something different to take place. And the way that takes place is by understanding how everything is created, including peace. So how would we then address this so-called mess out there? You know, Dr. Fred Alan Wolf, he's Dr. Quantum in What the Bleep Do We Know? Great guy. I remember how envious I was that he was teaching at the Holmes Institute out in Los Angeles, and I wanted to be there. So Dr. Fred Alan Wolf is this wonderful cosmic genius. And he reminded us in that film, there is no out there. Here's part of the solution. Number one, we recognize that there is a law of cause and effect that responds exactly to what we put into it. Number two, we remember that our freedom from anything and our freedom to experience anything is by using the same law that bound us. We used it unconsciously when we didn't know it was there. We unknowingly bound ourselves by thinking about, feeling about, dwelling on, talking about, basking in, wallowing in fear and doubt and the absence of peace. And what we got was more of that. But that same law will free us by using it consciously, knowingly, with intention, on purpose. How would we do that? We would shift what we think about. If we shift what we think about, and by the way, if you don't have one of those great t-shirts, talk to me afterwards. Change your thinking, change your life. It's true. Because what happens when you change what you focus upon up here, in the beginning was the mind, logos, the word, what happens is your feelings follow. They have to. That's how it works. And then the creative process is set in motion. And then the universe rearranges itself according to that idea and produces accordingly. So we know all that, and we say that's part of our solution. Here's the next part. Not only do we shift what we think, and shift what we feel, and shift what we set in motion and how we use the law, and expect different results, but the beauty of this next part is that there's this place where we're all one. This place where we're all one is the same place where the law of cause and effect hangs out. They have the same street address, if you will. Okay? So, the level at which we are all one is also the same level at which everything is created. Freud called this the collective unconscious. Ernest Holmes referred to this teaching as spiritual psychology. At the subconscious level, at the level of our memory, of our conviction, and our belief, guess what? At that level, we are one. So if you get that, what that means is that we are one at the level at which things are created. So, we're all part of a collective, right? And one of us in the room, just like a tuning fork that's been rung, begins to sing. And that same idea begins to awaken and to sing within everybody else in the room, and they didn't lift a finger, didn't do a thing. Okay? It's that easy. When you shift what you think and you feel, you lift the collective. That's how we help them, because there is no out there. We're really all connected. We're connected to those messed up people. We're part of that messed up world. So you want to know what the answer is. You want to know how to get them to see the light. Do you want to know how to get them to mend their ways? Do you want to know how to actually fix this thing? Are you ready? See the light. Mend your ways. And remember that we're all connected. It's that easy. And yes, it takes discipline. Ask the Dalai Lama. It takes discipline to stay in love against all odds. It takes discipline to stay in love in the middle of a family argument. It takes discipline to stay in love in a traffic jam when all appearances are that you're late. It takes discipline to stay in love when you've been taught to hate. It takes discipline to look beyond appearances and find that love there. And you notice I sort of dropped the word peace and picked up the word love, and of course the truth is, think about it. When you've been in one of those moments where someone or something got your guard down, and maybe you cried or you let go, maybe you got really mad, but you let go. Underneath it all, after all of that, after that letting go, what was there? Peace. Just like after one of these many thunderstorms that we've been having, then the sun comes out and everything's all clean and sparkly. That's who we really are underneath it all. So someone might sit down next to you and say something that gets you to smile for the very first time in a long while. Someone might bring a presence of love into your life that is so great it's disarming, and you dissolve, and you feel something that you thought was lost. And you might be that someone. And I'd like to tell you that when you're that someone, and somebody says, gosh, I just feel so good when I'm around him, I feel so great when I'm around her, tell them, you can do this too. Jesus said, all of these things and more, so shall he do. It's the same thing. Tell them, it's in you, or you wouldn't be able to recognize it in me, and you can do it too. It's really simple. We really do have the power to change the world. And it begins just like this. It begins by acknowledging that we are the light. It begins by us cleaning our own side of the street. And it begins by us not withdrawing from the world, but when we look at any source of news or any information from a friend, or listen to them, or pick up the phone, or whatever, see it with compassion. See beyond appearances. See the light. That's the only way that we're going to move out of this duality and the experience of good and evil, is to recognize our oneness and stay in that place of love. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody to close their eyes, and I'm going to close with one way that we do this here. A 5-step affirmative prayer. Okay? So simple that I bet you can remember it and take it with you. God is peace. Say this with me. God is peace.
God is peace.
And I am God.
And I am God.
Oh, how did that feel? And I am one with God.
And I am one with God.
Therefore I know
Therefore I know
that I am peace.
that I am peace.
I give thanks.
I give thanks.
I let it go.
I let it go.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.
And so it is.